Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Swedenborg and Life. Please don't panic. There's a lot of reasons you could panic right now. One is there's tea here, and why does he have tea? He never has tea. Is he in good health? This kind of stuff. And also, this is the part of the show where I should be announcing the topics. But we don't have topics today. We have a different sort of show for you today. So we come here every week in the other videos on the Off the Left Eye channel, and we're basically advocating Swedenborg's worldview, or we're sharing the ideas and trying to get them out there, get people interested in them, talking about them. But why? You know what? Why are we putting all this effort into pushing this stuff out into the web? Is it helping people? Is it doing anything good? This episode, we're going to be looking at what is the impact on people of Swedenborg's ideas. So we're going to kind of be doing an assessment. Since it's the end of the year, we're going to be looking back and thinking, are we doing a good thing? Is it all worth it? So here to help me discuss that are Chara and Chelsea, who have been guests on the show before, and we're glad that we got to wrap up the year with you. So thanks very much for coming on the show.
Thanks. Pleasure.
Info about what they do is right down there, but it doesn't matter in this episode because we're not here as experts. If you're laughing at home, technically I'm supposed to be an expert. But this time we're here just as people. And how are we as people affected by Swedenborg's message, by those ideas, by applying them to life? So thank you guys both for hanging out here today. Mm-hmm. So I thought what we're going to do for the show is talk a little bit about the impact the ideas have had on us. We also have videos that people sent in talking about how Swedenborg's influenced their life. And so we're going to take a look at those two and go at it. But so I want to open up the conversation myself. So obviously Swedenborg has had a big impact on me because that's why I'm here putting so much time and energy into trying to spread it. And I wouldn't be able to maintain enthusiasm for that if I didn't feel like this is going to do something good. This is going to help people make progress on problems that other things couldn't. And I would say that I have that belief because I've seen Swedenborg's material help me make progress in areas where other things couldn't. And I'm not going to try to provide a comprehensive chronological, okay, this is everything of Swedenborg's that I use, and I'm just going to go at things as they pop up, and hopefully you guys can too. First of all, it gives me a sort of a compass. Like what do I follow? You have all this internal stuff going on. You know, you have all these thoughts and all these feelings, and it's sort of, for me, it's like, okay, which way do you go? What do you pursue? What leads where? And I think about sort of the categories of love he talks about. That love to the neighbor, love of ourself, love of the world. How do those go together? And where do they show up in me? And how can I identify things? So I see, like, okay, even though I'm feeling good right now, okay, where is this coming from? Or I'm feeling bad right now, where is this coming from? So to me, a compass of sorts. Have you guys had any of that sort of this helped me sort of navigate life in a broad sense? Chara, yes. You may go first.
Thank you. Yes, you just took everything that I was going to say.
Okay, we'll start the show over.
That's what I wanted to say. The first thing is that it to me, that layout of the four major loves, how Swedenborg describes the four major loves, the two good loves, love to God and love to the neighbor, and then the two not so helpful loves, love of ourselves and love of materialism or love of worldly things. Just having that little map in my mind is so helpful because I can, if I'm conscious, I can try to assign any given feeling to where it is on that spectrum. And it helps me identify my own misery. I'm like, I get it. I'm having some, ego concern or something stimulated. So if I can try to pray my way out of that or do something useful to shift what I'm mired in or something.
Yes, and I don't encounter it as I'm judging myself, I'm feeling bad about myself. This material has always been to me a hand up. Like, this is showing me the way out of different kinds of misery, that were already happening. Like that, because some people will think like, okay, you're just, I got to feel bad about myself. That's never how I've encountered the potency of Swedenborg's message. It's always like, I have these racing thoughts that are trying to get me down. I have these feelings that I can't shake, and I go look at what he says about about the way the spiritual world influences the minds, about that some thoughts and feelings are false and you don't have to, and those kinds of things. Like this is a hand up, like this is a life-saving thing. It never feels to me like, oh, this is a condemning thing, and when I'm looking at things like I'm going to categorize thoughts and feelings, I'm not doing that because it's like, okay, am I bad or good? This is like, okay, this is the way out. This is showing me the way out, and it's always operating like that for me. That this is a way. The stress and the conflict comes from the thoughts and feelings I have. The teachings, the stuff in Swedenborg is what's lifting me. So I find that pretty consistently to be that. So I just thought and that's the way that Swedenborg says heaven operates. Angels, God. I mean, they don't condemn. They're not condemning. They're uplifting. And so that even when I find, sorry Chelsea, I'll let you get in. Sometime before the show's over, when I find that there is something like, I can identify something that's negative in me. Yeah. It's a relief because that thing is causing problems, and it's like, I can make progress on that. It's just shifting priorities, and there's this trust because Swedenborg paints this incredible picture of God, and it's this loving, wise, nuanced picture of God, and he says that that's who's behind it all, and I can gain this sort of clearer image of trust through that, and so I know, okay, if you say that I should veer left, I'm doing it. Because we're buddies. So anyway, some thoughts of mine. Chelsea, do you have something that connects?
I've always, I love to read Swedenborg, and I love to read other sort of sacred texts of different traditions. And something that I really appreciate about Swedenborg that I feel like I can always turn, or even like spiritual guidebooks, like just popular ones that you find on the bookshelf at Barnes & Noble or something. They might be like inspirational and good, but I always feel like if I just want to like cut through, just any of the whatever and just get to the heart of the matter, I know that when I open Swedenborg and I read, a few paragraphs or whatever, eventually he's going to get to a point where he just says, like, it's about loving your neighbor, and it's about, getting over your own sense of self-importance. Like, that's always what it comes down to. And so it's like a stronghold to be able to remind me of that, because it's so simple, and yet it's so easy to forget, to get sort of caught up in the thoughts and feelings, and then it's like, oh yeah, I'm just totally overwhelmed with this sense of self-importance or self-interest or whatever. And so if I get back to the basics of just looking, to love, how can I be, more of a presence of compassion, or just, have more of a gentle whatever, then that's a way out of those.
And it helps me to understand. Yeah, it helps me to understand the seesaw. That okay, right now I'm up because I'm thinking about how cool I am, and something went well for me. But as soon as things stop going well for me, and I don't think I'm cool anymore, I'm going to go way down. And so Swedenborg, the paradigm there, just kind of freeing you from the whole thing. It's like, listen, you have intrinsic value. This is a permanent partnership with God and the source of everything, and that we don't need to worry about this love of self kind of thing. And once you start to distance yourself from it and build these sort of healthier thought diet, healthier feeling diet, that I'm actually going to cultivate the things where I'm caring about a cause, caring about a purpose, that kind of stuff is what you base your diet on. The other stuff is like the dessert, then that is freeing, and that it frees me from this cycle of suffering. So let's take a look at what someone else has to say, and we can get back and continue this conversation. So our first video is by Donette, and she wants to talk a little bit about something from Swedenborg that's made an impact on her life.
One of the many things I love about Swedenborg's teachings is the fact that we are not our bodies. That we are not, I think the direct quote is, we are not human beings because of our bodies, but because of our spirits. And the older you get, the more obvious this becomes. I have many friends and acquaintances who've lost many body parts. I mean, artificial knees and new hips and amputees, and it doesn't change who they are. And I guess one of the best things about getting old is it brings you into focus on what really matters. And the development of your spirit is so much more important than care for the body. They both require a lot of care. I mean, it's kind of a pain to drag around an 85-year-old body that doesn't do what you want it to do. You have to maintain it. You have to wash it and clothe it and keep it warm and feed it. But we also have to do this with our spirit, and Swedenborg gives us so much material to help us on our journey when we finally, as Swedenborg says, when we don't leave anything behind when we die except this earthly body. I think, well, C.S. Lewis said, we are not bodies that have a soul. We are souls that are clothed to the body. Of course, Swedenborg says this in many ways. But it makes a big difference in our lives, because it doesn't matter if my legs don't work anymore. I'm still me. I still have work to do and things to look forward to.
So I'm actually 4 years younger than Donette, so I don't know exactly what she's talking about with reaching that age. But I think it makes important insights that I think apply to all ages, especially any kind of physical hardship can kind of get you realizing, okay, I'm driving a machine, but it's not necessarily who I am. And then also, as we were talking about before, just sort of the body's not us, and sort of our reputation and sort of these other external kind of things are not necessarily us either. So that was one thing that I got out of hers, and I just liked her honesty, and this is how it is. So do you guys have any reactions? Chelsea, do you have a reaction to that?
Yeah, it was just reminding me, I love, there was one time where I had a quote from Swedenborg that talked about caring for your body, and I just kept it on my bedroom door because it was something along the lines of, you care for your body not for its sake, but for, the uses that it can perform, and then care for your spirit also not for its, or like not, you care for yourself, but not for its own sake, but for, the use what you can do with it. And so for me, that was a really inspirational quote to encourage me, because sometimes it can be hard. Like, I can see it as being like, taking care of your body, or understanding, okay, I'm a spirit, so I don't, it doesn't matter if horrible things happen to my body. Like I'm beyond,
right.
Or not that it doesn't matter, but, we can live beyond that. But at the same time, it's like, well, we have these physical bodies, and so, how is it important to take care of them? Right. Why take care of them? People are we abuse ourselves so much of the time. And so for me,
I'm drinking tea that has caffeine in it.
Pick your poison. Yeah. And so that was just, there was a time in my life where that one quote from Swedenborg just really helped remind me, oh yeah, that's why I take care of my body. Not because I need to look good in this physical body, or, some physical only, reason, but because of what I can do with it. If I take care of my body, if I eat well, and if I exercise and whatever, then that's going to enable me to be, spiritually helpful to other people or whatever, which is the kind of thing that really matters.
Yeah, and that's that compass effect, and the sort of narrowing down life. There's so many different mindsets you could have in relationship to your body. But this idea that, I remember that quote that you're talking about, that the purpose of having a healthy body is a healthy mind in a healthy body, and the purpose of the healthy mind is to serve humanity. So this just kind of gives you, okay, this is why I'm doing things. And I notice at work, at home, any projects that I'm involved in, the purpose completely dictates how it feels and how much passion I have for it. If I don't understand why I'm doing something, I run out of steam really quickly. But if you understand why, that can really lift you up. And I'll see you can get a lot of that out of these different sort of insights that Swedenborg had. Chara, do you have thoughts?
Yeah, it made me think of one of Swedenborg's quotes, which happened to be my dad's favorite and is also one of mine, which is, we are not born for the sake of ourselves, but for the sake of others. And Donette's comments just reminded me of that, whether it's to do with your body or not. But when my dad had a series of strokes, and after his last stroke, he lived for 2 more weeks, and he was hated to be a burden, blah, 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 blah. But what it did for us as we were taking care of him, and the time that we got to spend in the last 2 weeks with him, like he was still, there was still all kinds of great things about him being in this world still for us. Even though for him, it wasn't his favorite place, although there were lots of blessings for him too.
That's a beautiful story. Thanks for sharing that. And not born for the sake of ourselves, but for the sake of others. There's a certain, I find a safety and sort of a release in those kinds of statements. Because the way that most of people's lives, I think, is kind of dictated by this almost fear, or like, okay, I have to go where I'll feel great. You know, like how in all this stuff of like becoming the person that you want to be, being with the people you want to be with, having the right career. Because we're looking for, how do I maximize my experience? How do I find like deep, meaningful joy? How do I, I gotta go get what's good, But Swedenborg has within his worldview this description of heaven and the meaning and the bliss that comes with that, and that, okay, guess what? You can get there by thinking about other people, and this releases you from this feeling of like, okay, well, do I have potential that I have to go realize? Do I have to try to make these particular moves? Am I going to miss my train if I don't? That Swedenborg provides this, like, don't worry, there is an incredible existence for you out there. But this is being brought about by providence, and you don't. The train is loving people, and you can get there. You don't have to worry about the nuances of how the events of your life are going to go. Those kinds of things, I find, if you have those in your holster, then your worries and your fears have a lot less to go on. And that man, I'm talking a lot. That could go to like sort of the heart of why I'm into Swedenborg, which is his concepts, the mindset he describes. When I take that and internalize it and put it up against my negative thoughts and feelings, my fears, this kind of stuff, they lose all their potency. Everything else I try, they get stronger. When I go to this sort of body of truth that he expresses, then I suddenly I'm winning. So that, to me, that's the strongest indicator that there's something here. It's like in the New Testament, it says, even the wind and the waves obey him. When Jesus, when he does that, so there's something powerful in it. If what Swedenborg is describing hundreds of years ago in these old crusty books is the only potent tool, the most potent tool that I've found. Other things work too, but the most potent tool that I've found to push back this negativity and help me be happy, healthy, well-adjusted, then that's cool. I'm going to assert that's cool. That's cool. And if you guys want to have a rebuttal at some point, you may. All right. Do you guys want to look at another video?
Sure.
Okay.
That was fun.
So, let's do it again. Why not? Okay. So this next one is from John Jin.
After I accept the New Church teachings, my life is totally changed. Because I was in 16, I accept Christianity. But I always has two questions. One, who is God? There's many teachings, but it doesn't make sense to me. And second thing, just we believe the Lord Jesus Christ died cross because of us, me. We just believe his blood. Then I saved. I cannot understand. So I read a lot of Christian doctrines, and also even I met the teachers and ministers and scholars, almost 200 people. But their conclusion is very simple. It is the Lord's work is mysterious. So we don't understand. Therefore, you just believe, then you will save. It doesn't satisfy. And also, it doesn't change my life. Fortunately, I was a 30s. I read and then accepted Nietzsche's teaching as the word. After that, for a while, I was very satisfied and very happy. Everything looks like heaven, but it does not go so long. And then I realized that one teaching, without practice, it doesn't happen. So every in the morning, I read the word and then meditate and then practice, little by little. It changed my life totally. Everything content because of the Lord is with me. I feel more and more satisfied my life and trust His leading.
So I pulled two major themes out of what John Jin said, and he talks about new church teachings in there, which is what some people refer to Swedenborg's works as. And mainly, one was the satisfaction of the idea, this theology or worldview making sense. The things, okay, here's something I come across and it makes sense. And then he had this other segment about practice, and that you've got to practice to feel the results. So, thoughts, comments, anything like that, Chara?
Well, the thing that came to me is he described his practice of reading the Word and meditating.
Oh, yeah.
Swedenborg has a lot to say about the power of the Word or the Bible. And that is something I'm getting into more and more and more. Swedenborg's views are that the Bible has an inner story about us. It's about our life. It's about our spiritual development. And that is cool.
No, it is. The more you look at the way that it's the language of correspondences, as he puts it, you're like, this is elegant and this is complex, but it's self-consistent and it makes sense.
Yeah.
So, sorry.
And that the Lord is in the Word. The Lord's truth is the Lord. And so the way John described it, as he feels the Lord with him because he spends time every morning reading the Word. That's a powerful story that a lot of people have that experience.
Yeah, totally. Chelsea?
Yeah, I really resonated with his point about reading the Word and meditating daily, because I feel like that I've definitely found that to be true in my life, where if I have a daily practice of meditating, and then it's amazing the impact it'll have on the rest of my day. Like anything.
Routine, sort of.
Yeah, like if I, even if I spend 10 minutes, even just sitting silently with my eyes closed, then the rest of the day, it's all the irritations that may have been overwhelming me, at another day are just quieted. I really think that connecting into that silence, then you have a sense of it throughout your whole day. So that whole, then you can have more of a connection with how the Lord is leading you in the day. If we're always just going, then it's, of course you lose sight of the why. But when we take time to just sit, I just feel like that answer is always there for us, if we're willing to sit and be quiet with it.
That taps in for me to something you had mentioned earlier, that you read Swedenborg for a few paragraphs, eventually he's going to talk about the core principles of life. And I find that despite how much information, in all aspects of life, we gain sort of higher truths about things, psychology and the way we should live life and all this kind of stuff. It's very hard to keep that at the front of your mind, that you often are operating without it. So I find that, in reading Swedenborg on a regular basis, I get reminded of those things. And without him, as you're saying, your whole day, it feels very similar, but you just don't have this certain groundwork laid. So you come at situations differently. You don't kind of maximize the progress you've already made in thinking that way. So I know you guys have clipboard things with. Do you guys, before we go to our next video, do you guys want to say anything from those, just sort of ways that Swedenborg has impacted you that you brought in?
Yeah, I just have one other quick one that comes to mind. so the psychology in Swedenborg's works is just so helpful to me. Not only that, he says that the spiritual world is like feeding us, is our thoughts and feelings are coming from the spiritual world at all times. And to me, that's another very freeing thing, because if I start getting caught up in something that's really upsetting me, I can just try. I mean, it depends what the subject is, but sometimes you can just say, okay, this is hell, having fun, making me miserable. I'm going to say thank you for coming. I'm done. Goodbye. And just detach myself from these influencing things. That's very good. And another thing is that Swedenborg talks about, it's that human beings, we don't really have the power to change our feelings. We can change our thoughts, but not our feelings. And that concept, along with the concept of praying to the Lord, because the Lord is the one who can change your feelings. I can't. Right. And that has been very helpful in concrete situations where I just feel like I'm never going to stop feeling like this. Help me, please. Yeah. And sometimes it's happened. I know for other people that has happened.
Do you have documented proof of that?
In here, I do.
Because a lot of people feel like there are unrealistic expectations put on them by religion. Like, oh, you have to do. But I actually find Swedenborg can give realistic expectations, meaning like, you could sort of think, if I want to be a good person, I need to not have any bad thoughts and I need to feel good, loving feelings to everybody. But what you were describing there is this idea that, hey man, just detach, like don't take those thoughts so personally. It's not about shutting off the valve, it's how we react to the thoughts. I think that's incredibly potent. And then also this, that the will, as he describes it, or the feelings we have are so deeply ingrained and are so powerful that we're not supposed to be able to just flip them and switch them and rearrange them. This is something that's like grafting a branch on a tree. It takes a long time, and that you need outside help. I think that's part of why Alcoholics Anonymous, which many people surmise was modeled on Swedenborg, because there's all these connections, and the guy's whatever dad or mom was Swedenborgian, but that's been so powerful for people is because it's this, okay, I need outside help, and it's the same sort of principle. So that's awesome. Chelsea, any thoughts?
That it reminds me of a quote from Swedenborg that says the self is not one or another kind of thing, but the quality of its own receptivity.
Interesting.
And because what I come back to over and over again in myself, in my own inner experience, is that Swedenborg talks about your inner self and your outer self, and how really the outer self, when he talks about it in certain places, that really is hell, or like that's just our little self or whatever.
We would call it ego, or just
right. And then the inner self is this higher self, or it's actually connected to love and the Lord's love and wisdom. And so for me, I feel like it's so helpful to know that I'm just in the balance, which I'm not to blame for having an outer self, and that outer self is never going to go away. Like that's always just so I don't have to be surprised or feel horrible about myself because there I am going again, saying something I wish I didn't, or whatever. Or and then the same with reminding myself, I have this option, a different part of myself that I could just check into. So, and those every day when you wake up, they're both there, and that's always, and Swedenborg says, even angels, they still have that outer self, because part of that is what gives us our individuality. And so that never fully goes away, but it gets more and more quieted. Like we can just use it for its purpose of giving us, definition, and yet, but be so much more than that by connecting to our inner self.
Awesome. Great. Nice. Great. Let's get to our last video. This one is from Tom.
Hi, my name is Tom Muller. I'm currently a student at the Swedenborgian House of Studies in Berkeley, California. One of the ways in which Swedenborg's works have had a big impact on my life, I would characterize as spiritual liberation. For a long time, I considered myself very much religious until I reached a point where the things which I believed, partially with absolute certainty, didn't seem to really go hand in hand with the reality that I was experiencing. Believing that there was one particular path to God that I could know with absolute certainty. Seeing the Bible as a prescriptive, literal, historical document, a loving God who judges and condemns his people to hell, were things that I was starting to question. And in my sort of path of, you could say, theistic agnosticism, Swedenborg resonated with me very deeply. I saw him proclaiming a God that is radically loving, to the degree to where guilt and shame, punishment and reward become quite relative in a sense. The notion that we make our heaven and we make our hell in the spiritual states that we choose in this life, rather than a condemnation from an angry or judgmental deity. The notion that the Bible, problematic as it is, may contain incredibly important and incredibly profound spiritual insight about my own spiritual psyche. Rather than having to believe very particular things, I found Swedenborgian theology promoting a spirituality that is based on discovery, that is based on honesty, that is based on an equilibrium, that is based on an equilibrium, so to speak, of rationality and spirituality. You don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. You can have a deeply, deeply sophisticated and engaging spiritual life and spiritual thought world without falling into what I like to call the trap of dogmaticism or the trap of fundamentalism. That to me has been incredibly liberating, because I can have a relationship with God that I feel is genuine and that acknowledges the complexity of who I am as a human being, as well as what I perceive as the complexity of what the divine is. Thank you.
So he had a lot of things in there that I liked. One particularly that stood out was, the rationality and spirituality can go hand in hand, and also this sense of like discover, explore for yourself. And that Swedenborg often in his text will say, you use your rational ability and think about it. We had an episode recently where we were of this show where we were discussing that actually doubt and weighing something in the mind is the divine design for how you learn something. And even Swedenborg, I was recently reading an account of an encounter he had in the spiritual world where somebody believes something differently, and he's like, here's a few points, now go think about it. And he, even though he was telling something that was true about the spiritual world, he couldn't just force the guy to believe. He's like, go think this over. And it's cool that, and I do feel like that does give you a sense of, you don't have to compartmentalize, you don't have to think about life analytically, intelligently, and everything else. But when you get to your spiritual practice kind of stuff, you just have to shut that off or ignore these disharmonies or these things that don't fit together. So I do feel like the point he's making is an important one, that I feel within the framework of Swedenborg, this sort of room to move and think and grow in that sort of way. So do you guys have reactions to that?
Yeah. A couple of things come to mind. One is that I really love how he pointed out the way that Swedenborg's teachings aren't meant to be this exclusive thing.
Yeah.
Like that's he's not saying what you're going to read here is you won't find this anywhere else, because really the more you deep you get into the ideas he's teaching, then I just see that same resonance. It's all over, those same, they're true because they're true. Like anybody who sits or has any kind of, a really engaged spiritual practice is going to come to know these same things. So I find for me that is sort of confirmation of what he's saying. Think about it, and I see it in all of these different ways. Other people experiencing the same kind of thing, so for me personally in my life, I was raised with these teachings, but then sort of went away from them for a while, and what brought me back was how well they described my inner spiritual experience, like just what my inner life felt like, what my dreams were like, just all of those very just
You mean
day-to-day.
literally like nighttime dreams?
Yes, right. Oh yeah, I do.
Like not your hopes and dreams.
Right, like really, involved, intense dreams and things. It was just interesting to have his writings really confirm for me that be just sort of, oh yeah, that is what I experience, and this is what that. So his emphasis to think about it for yourself, I think that is really important, and see, is it true for you or not. And since those core principles are so basic, like it's just about living a life that is loving, thinking outside of yourself, connecting to a bigger picture, and serving this greater good, then he's just saying, then it doesn't matter what else, what ideas you want to fill in the spaces around that, you're doing what's really helpful. So
I think we saw sort of an example of this sort of convergence. Chara, when you were describing, this thing I like from Swedenborg is this, the thoughts and feelings that I'm getting, I don't have to attach to it. And this is a foundational principle of Buddhism, this non-attachment kind of thing, so that you do. And I did notice that when I was not as into Swedenborg as I am now, I would notice like, I did know of Swedenborg, and I would say, I'm learning about Buddhism right now. I'm learning about they do say similar things, and that if there really is a truth, if we're really talking about some kind of fundamental reality that everybody's participating in, you would expect to see the same ideas popping up. The ones that he's saying, these are accurate, you'd expect to see them. Someone else should have stumbled across them. And Swedenborg is a mix of these ideas that everyone stumbled across and some that he's like gotten up with his microscope and able to find out these really specific, insane, amazing facts that kind of augment sort of that. So, Chara, did you have thoughts?
Yeah, my thought is that, pardon me, as you said in different words, yes, the body. Yeah. Just that Swedenborg himself says that, as you said in different language, just that all different faiths have truth in them and are saving, quote unquote, can be saving. It's about love and service. And I love the image in the book of Revelation about the 12 gates to the city, the holy city, New Jerusalem. The 12 gates, to me, that just, there's so many different ways of combining your understanding and your love for people to get you into a heavenly state.
That's an uplifting note. Why don't we quit while we're ahead? So that's gonna wrap it up for this year. But I want to hear from all of you. We thought we'd do this thing where we'd if you saw those videos, those from people who sent them in. If you want to send in, have you been watching? Has any of Swedenborg's ideas touched your life in some kind of positive way? Have you gotten something good out of it? Upload a video, whether it's YouTube or Facebook or whatever video source you want. Send us a link to it at offthelefteye@gmail.com whenever you see this episode, even if it's in the future. And from there, we want to show them. We'll show them on this show if you guys get a minute. We want to know, because if we're going to be putting these ideas out there, are they having good impacts? And if they're having good impacts, what are those impacts? So you can help us out there, and then we'll see you in the new year. So looking forward to hanging out with all you guys in 2015. And thank you so much to you guys as guests, to you guys as audiences, everyone who's made this show such a fun thing. We started like halfway through this year, and I've really grown to enjoy it. So thanks to everyone, and we'll see you next week.